Making lineup decisions for quarterback and tight end is just not getting any easier. We're going to help you out. Let's go through all the matchups for week 8 and figure out who to start and who to sit. We still got a few QBs that you can say are must starts. Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, and if he plays, Jaden Daniels. At tight end, you can still go with Brock Bowers, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, Trey McBride, and Evan Engram. Before you start setting your fantasy lineup, you're going to get your picks in on Underdog. For some reason you haven't tried Underdog yet, go ahead and do it. Download the app, go to underdogfantasy.com, and you get this free pick as a new customer. Matthew Stafford just getting 1 yard on Thursday night against the Vikings. That's a free pick for you, but you have to sign up using code ENDGAME. That also gets you a deposit match with up to $1,000 worth of bonus cash just for signing up. So use code ENDGAME and check out Underdog Fantasy now. All right, let's talk Thursday night football. The Vikings at the Rams. Start with the Minnesota side. Sam Darnold has been solid pretty much all season. What do you think about him in this road contest against the Rams?
Yeah, he didn't quite smash last week the way we thought he would, but he was still pretty good, and this Rams defense doesn't scare me one bit. I still think Sam Darnold this week, I'm going to put him in the solid start tier. I think even in a 1 QB league, he's a solid start.
Yeah, even though he didn't have a big game, I mean, you look, basically there were only like 3 quarterbacks who actually had big games last week. A lot of disappointment. Darnold was still pretty good. This Rams defense is not scary. He is very streamable still, even in a 1 QB league. And a lot of people wondering, is TJ Hawkinson going to make his debut in week 8? We shall see. If he does, are you going to trust him in your lineup?
No way. I mean, this is a guy you're just hoping he scores a touchdown. He'll be very limited if he even plays. I'm going to avoid TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, I mean, the excitement, I understand it, but let's do the smart thing and let's wait at least a week and see how much he plays, how he looks, etc. I think you can sit. Matt Stafford should get you at least a yard, but how many yards and how good can he be against this Vikings defense?
It is a good matchup. He should have Cooper Kupp back. He is at home. I'm going to put Matthew Stafford in the streamer tier. I don't think he's a guy you need to start, but if you need a QB this week, you can do worse than Matthew Stafford.
For me, this definitely hinges on Cooper Kupp being back. If Kupp plays as expected, yeah, I think you could stream him because the Vikings, for what it's worth, are giving up a lot of points to quarterbacks. On the other hand, Colby Parkinson, he hasn't even been that good. And with Kupp back, I'm just going to say no thanks.
Yeah, I'm going to avoid Colby Parkinson this week.
All right, let's get to the Packers at the Jaguars in week 8. Let's talk Jordan Love. Continues to just be really, really solid. I'm assuming he'll be fine against the Jags.
Yeah, I've no worries about Jordan Love this week. I mean, borderline must start here against the Jags, but a strong start this week.
Yeah, very strong start here. And look, if you got him as your quarterback, just continue to roll with him. Just when it looked like Tucker Kraft might be falling off, redeemed himself with a touchdown last week, where do you put him this week?
He's just always going to live in that streaming option tier. I mean, he only had 3 targets in this game. Thankfully, 1 was a touchdown, but if he doesn't get you a touchdown, he's not getting you a whole lot. So he's a streaming option.
You got to remember the Packers got all their receivers healthy for the time being. He's always streamable, but always has a very low floor. And for the Jaguars part, Evan Engram, still a guy you want in your lineup. What about Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, against Green Bay, this tough secondary. Trevor Lawrence, 2 QB Superflex only for me this week.
I'm not sure if when T-Law will ever make it beyond that tier for me, but right now, Superflex is as high as I can go. Cardinals at the Dolphins. Now, a lot of questions surrounding Kyler Murray. When is he going to have an actual big game for fantasy? Is it going to happen this week?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. The Dolphins secondary has been better of late. Maybe this turns into a sneaky shootout type of game. Kyler Murray, we've seen a couple times he's got that rushing upside, but man, just not there through the air. I can only put Kyler Murray in the solid start tier.
Yeah, even then, man, I want to really drop him down to the streamer category. There are more quarterbacks out there that can replace his production than you'd think. So, let's just do it. Until we see it, until we see Marvin Harrison really step up, until this offense clicks, let's just say you don't have to start Murray in a 1 QB league. You can stream him, but that's it. And the good news for the Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa should be back. He's ready to go. Is he a plug and play if you need someone to stream?
That's it. He's a streamer for me. I can't say he's like a solid start or you got to start him in your 1 QB league, but if you need a streaming option, it's a good matchup this week. He's definitely worth a stream.
A good guy to pick up if you do happen to play matchups. Cardinals defense, nothing to be scared of, but it's probably going to be a little bit of rust early in the game. So let's say he's a good streaming option. Now, I'm curious your thoughts on Jonnu Smith, who was on fire last week, but with Tua coming back, is this actually harmful to Jonnu Smith?
You got to think it is. You got to think the Dolphins are actually going to target Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle this week and not just throw it to Jonnu Smith over and over. But at the same time, he's had some decent games, so he's streamable, but not one of my favorite options this week.
I did mention Smith again as a tight end streamer if you need him this week, because I think he will continue to at least have a role in this offense. Yeah, sure, they're going to go Hill and Waddle a lot more now, for sure, but it's not a bad matchup. I think he's going to have at least enough target share to make him playable if you stream the position. Our Jets going to take on the Patriots in Foxborough this week. Aaron Rodgers got his buddy in tow and didn't seem to help him too much. Do we see better results this week?
It's not a great matchup here against the Patriots. Aaron Rodgers is what he is for me these days. He's just going to live in that 2 QB Superflex tier only.
Yeah, I said early in the season, I'm really not budging off of that, even with Devontae Adams there. I'm not really going to want to start him in a 1 QB league if I have other options available. This week, there's no team on bye, so I'll say Superflex only. Now, the tight end's Tyler Conklin. Is his value pretty much dead now? Another receiver in town?
It's pretty close to dead. I don't even think I can put him in the streaming tier. He's going to be an avoid for me.
Right, we're going to have to look elsewhere. Again, the target share isn't going to be there anymore, so you can avoid Conklin if you were considering him. Now for the Patriots, good news, Drake May looks legit, although I will say that a lot of his yardage and production did come when they were losing in what you could call garbage time or come from behind time or whatever, but still, encouraging enough that you can consider him at least in Superflex.
I know the Jets defense hasn't been, elite this year, but still a step up from Jacksonville. It's 2 QB Superflex only this week.
Game script is definitely going to matter for a guy like this. So, yeah, this matchup's not going to make him a streaming option. Superflex 2 QB only. Now, Hunter Henry was by far the leading receiver in Week 7 for the Pats. Does that mean he becomes one of the best streamers this week?
And that was the Jags, who seem like they can't defend tight ends to save their lives. This is the Jets. He could always score. He's a streaming option.
I can't say he's not a streaming option, but let's just say, first of all, we've been here before with Henry, right? Remember, what was it, like week 2, week 1? I don't remember. He had a game and then did nothing, but also he did this because Demario Douglas basically didn't play. He was sick and left the game. This is a Jets defense, not the Jags. I'm going to say this is a trap of desperation streamer. Now, hopefully this video helps you with all your start-sit decisions, but if you still have questions for start-sit, waiver wire trades, or anything fantasy football related, use the Draft Lane app because that connects you directly with Chris and myself for all your fantasy football needs. Download it for free right now. Ravens at the Browns. Did you drop Mark Andrews? If so, you're kicking yourself after he scored twice on Monday night. So, is Andrews creeping back up towards must-start territory?
I guess so. I guess he's back. I mean, wow. I don't know what's going on because he's still not running a ton of routes. But if he's going to keep catching touchdowns, it doesn't really matter. I can't say Mark Andrews must start, of course, but I'm going to say Mark Andrews back in the strong start tier.
He has to be. Has to be. Don't know what happened those first few weeks, but I guess it doesn't matter at this point. Mark Andrews has to be a strong start if you got him. We're going to finally have a changing of the guard in Cleveland. Deshaun Watson is no more for this season. It's the Ravens defense. What do you think?
Good matchup for a quarterback, but it's still Jameis Winston here. He's throwing to like Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman and David Njoku. I'll like him more than Dorian Thompson-Robinson, of course, but I'm still only going to put him in the 2 QB Superflex tier.
Yeah, and this is still Brown's offensive line has been decimated by injuries. Still not a great offense, but yeah, he can be a 2 QB Superflex option. Now with David Njoku, it didn't even matter who was in at quarterback. All three of them were targeting him. He scored. He had a big game statistically. Do we have to be back in on Njoku regardless?
I think we have to. I think with the way the passing game is, no Deshaun Watson, I think David Njoku has to be a strong start.
I mean, we got what we were hoping for, isn't it? Like, I'll just say it. We're all thinking it. David Njoku just needed a non-Watson quarterback, and he's got it. Yeah, we're back in on Njoku. You got him, start him. Eagles taking on the Bengals here. All right, Dallas Goedert's going to be an interesting one because he missed last week. If he clears the injury report this week, are you considering him?
He's a low-end streaming option. You can't feel great. A.J. Brown healthy, Devonta Smith healthy, but you could do worse than Dallas Goedert.
You could definitely do worse than Goedert. He still has more upside than most of your streaming options out here, but I can't say you have to start him with those receivers healthy. So, strong streamer. Now, when Goedert missed last, we saw Grant Calcaterra as a starter, but I don't know. What's the upside here?
Apparently the upside is 0 because that's what he got you last week. I am not starting Calcaterra even if Dallas Goedert is out again.
Yeah, he did a little something a week before, but I think that's because we didn't see both those receivers really fully active. So I'm just going to say no to Calcaterra as well. And Joe Burrow, looking like he is all the way back, having a great season so far. What does he do against this Eagles defense?
Got to feel pretty good about Joe Burrow at home against this Eagles secondary. I think Joe Burrow's got to be a strong start.
Yeah, sure, the Eagles ate up Daniel Jones last week, but that's Daniel Jones. Come on, this is a different offense, different situation. This could be a shootout, so you got Joe Burrow. Don't overthink it. Just start him. This week, we're going to have the Colts taking on the Texans in Houston. A lot of talk about Anthony Richardson and how completely ineffective he was as a passer. Is there a reason to justify starting Anthony Richardson in a single QB league anymore?
Nope. At this point, no way. And even 2 QB Superflex feels so risky, which is just insane to even say, but it's true. And now on the road against this Houston defense, I'm going to avoid Anthony Richardson this week.
Yeah, last year in Cleveland, everyone's rooting for Joe Flacco to come in, and I think we're doing the same now with Indy. I really want Flacco back to reinvigorate that passing game. Not sure if it'll happen. AR doesn't have to be held in a 1 QB league, and he doesn't have to be started. Superflex, I guess, but it's not a good matchup anyway, so super risky. Now, CJ Stroud had definitely his worst game of the season last week, but could this be a bounce back spot?
Got to be a bounce back spot. At home against the Colts just get torched by every quarterback they face, it seems like. So, yeah, I know CJ Stroud hasn't been great this year, but this might be his best game of the season.
It's not just that Stroud can't be worse than last week. It's a great spot against a bad defense at home, and he has some very pronounced home road splits. He only has 2 300-yard passing games this year, both at home. His road games is where he's struggled. Don't know why, but whatever. Just go with it. You got Stroud at home. This is a game you definitely do want to start him, and I definitely want to take the higher on him. On Underdog, if you do those pick'ems that we talk about all the time, right now only 240.5 passing yards. Yeah, take the higher on that. Trust me, he'll bounce back in a big way. Take that CJ Stroud pick higher on passing yards and combine it with that free pick going higher on just getting 1 yard from Matt Stafford on Thursday night, and you could win your very first pick'em, or use any pick you like. Just make sure when you sign up for the first time on Underdog, you use promo code ENDGAME to take advantage of that. And what about the tight end Dalton Schultz? Is he streamable because of the matchup?
No, I mean, I'm done. I was done last week. I said don't start him. He did nothing. He's done nothing with Nico out. He's done nothing all year. Maybe this is the week he does something, but I'm not trusting that. I'm not putting him in my lineup. He's in a void.
2 weeks ago, I said he was droppable, and nothing has changed. No, I'm not going to stream him, even if I need somebody. Titans at the Lions. Gonna assume we'll see Mason Rudolph as the starter once again. If so, can you consider him?
No. I don't even know what format it would need to be for me to consider Mason Rudolph. He's in a void.
Yeah, like even Superflex, remember, you don't have to start a quarterback. You could go with a receiver or something else, which means you can avoid Mason Rudolph. Jared Goff, on the other hand, I mean, he's been really solid all year long. How good could he be in this matchup?
That's the thing. It's another tough matchup against this Titans secondary, but he's at home. He's been so good even in tough matchups. I got to say, Jared Goff, a solid start despite the matchup.
Part of me worries this actually might be a sneaky disappointing game for Goff because they just won't have to throw it as much as they did against Minnesota. The Titans might not put up enough of a fight. They can still run the ball pretty well, but he's at the very least a solid option, even in a 1 QB league. And then, man, what about Sam Laporta? We just have to look at the numbers here. Where do you put Sam Laporta here? Is he even streamable?
He's on my bench. I'm done. How many? The guy's getting 1 or 2 targets a game. He has to score a touchdown. He has to. If he doesn't, you're getting nothing here. I think there are better streaming options than Sam Laporta. He's in a void for me.
Well, part of the reason I will say he's at least streamable is because now Jameson Williams not going to be with the team for at least 2 games. Maybe those targets go back to Laporta. We can't think of him as Sam Laporta from last year, but come on, there's not that many tight ends I would put over him, so I think you can at least start him. Falcons taking on the Bucs. All right, here's the $1 million question. How can Kirk Cousins follow up his 500-yard performance the last time these teams met?
600 yards? No, probably not. But look, it's the Bucs. They just gave up 5 passing touchdowns to Lamar Jackson. You got to feel good about Kirk Cousins this week. I think he's at least a solid start.
He's got to be. Again, we know we're not going to get exactly what we think we're going to get or hope for, but still, how many better options are there at quarterback? I think he bounces back. This Bucs defense, you've got to take advantage of. He's a very strong option. Kyle Pitts, the non-believers don't want to hear it, but I think we just got to consider rolling him out there every single week.
I think you do. 7 catches in 2 of the last 3 games, at least 65 yards in each of the last 3 games. He's a solid start at tight end.
He's got to be. And again, against this Bucs defense, why wouldn't you want to start him? And just when we were ready to anoint Baker Mayfield a must start, what if he doesn't have either of his top 2 wide receivers? Because after Monday night, that's looking very possible. I don't think we just completely avoid him, but man, what if Mayfield is down to Sterling Shepard and Jalen McMillan? No offense.
That's a big hit to his fantasy value for sure. He would have been in the strong start if those guys were healthy, but now with, Chris Godwin almost certainly not playing. Mike Evans probably not playing. I'm only going to say Baker Mayfield is a streaming option this week.
Even then, very risky. The least he can run, and he will scramble. He's got some rushing touchdowns, rushing upside, but only a streamer because of those injuries. Partly because of the Evans injury, we saw Cade Otton put up his best game. 8 catches, 100 yards. If those 2 receivers are out, is Otton now a must-add, must-stream tight end?
I think he's got to be. They got to throw to somebody. It didn't seem like Jalen McMillan, Trey Palmer, Sterling Shepard, those guys didn't really step up. Cade Otton's out there almost every single snap, and he's not out there to block. I think Cade Otton is at least a solid start this week.
This is what benefits tight ends the most, the target share when the receivers that are lined up around him either aren't effective or are injured. And now that's the case. So if they have to pass it a lot, Otton should definitely benefit. He's going to be one of your best, if not the best, streaming options out there. Saints at the Chargers. We may be treated to another week of Spencer Rattler if Derek Carr is still out. So if that's the case, any hope that Rattler does better?
No, what's the hope here? He's been terrible. You cannot start Spencer Rattler, even in 2 QB Superflex.
Even if Olave does come back and play, no Rashid Shaheed, nah. This matchup, there's no way. Can't start Rattler. And I'll just say this. Look, what if Derek Carr does manage to play? I don't think I want Derek Carr in my lineup either.
Yeah, it's not the best matchup, but I'll at least say Derek Carr is fine in a 2 QB Superflex because he's not a disaster like Spencer Rattler.
Juwan Johnson, either QB, does it matter with him?
It should be a boost to him with no receivers here, but it's really not. I'm going to avoid Juwan Johnson.
No, we can do better. Again, road against this Chargers defense, not going to risk it. Now, Justin Herbert, just has not been throwing for many yards or touchdowns or at all. Do you think the Saints defense, which has been the worst over the past few weeks, makes for a big fantasy day?
I don't know if Justin Herbert's ever going to have a big fantasy day. He did just throw for over 300 yards against the Cardinals, but still no touchdowns. I think because it's the Saints, I'll put him in the 2 QB Superflex bucket this week.
Because of the matchup, he can be played, but still not even the best streaming option because honestly, the Saints might not put up that much of a fight. And here's a new name, Will Dissly. I mean, you've heard of him before, but all of a sudden the leading target getter and leading receiver for the Chargers in Week 7, okay? Does this mean Dissly is now on the streaming radar?
There's definitely risk here. This definitely could be a trap, but it's also the Saints, so I guess he's a streaming option, but very risky.
Yeah, this really feels like it has the makings of a one-week wonder, but I mean, look, I guess if you're down bad and you really need a tight end with upside, I guess I'd prefer Dissly to some of those other guys, like, say, Juwan Johnson, for example. Bills at the Seahawks. Let's talk Dalton Kincaid. Still waiting for that real big game. Does he do it this week?
I don't know. I don't know if we're ever going to see that big game from Dalton Kincaid this year. And I don't know, like, if DK Metcalf is out, are they really going to need to throw a lot? But Kincaid is fine. I think Kincaid just kind of is going to live in that solid start tier.
Khalil Shakir back healthy, and oh yeah, now they have Amari Cooper. Yeah, I guess the Dalton Kincaid breakout season isn't happening. I mean, he is still, I would say, streamable. Geno Smith continues to put up big yardage, but now this is a game against the Buffalo Bills defense. Where do you put him?
Can't feel good and might be without DK Metcalf. 2 QB Superflex only.
The Seahawks, man, I don't know. They're throwing it a lot, but it feels like some kind of shallow production at times. Yeah, I'd be nervous. I'd just say low end of the Superflex tier. The one guy that it has been coming on a little bit is Noah Fant, and again, if DK is out, does Fant interest you more?
Yeah, if DK Metcalf is out, I think he's definitely streamable, but I think even with DK Metcalf, he might still be streamable. So I think he's like an okay streaming option.
Yeah, that feels fair. Again, it's not like he's ever having a huge afternoon. He's not really finding the end zone too often, but yeah, he can get you something in a PPR league. All right, now we have the Bears coming off of their bye week, taking on the Commanders in Washington. Let's start with Caleb Williams. He's starting to get a little bit better, but this is not the smash spot that it might seem.
Exactly. This Commanders defense is playing a lot better. Give Dan Quinn credit. He's got these guys playing pretty well. Yeah, it's Caleb Williams. He's risky. I'm only going to put him in the Superflex tier this week.
I'm not going to strongly advise to play Caleb Williams as I have before. And look, props to Dan Quinn, of course, defensive mind, getting this squad together, but also, even without Jonathan Allen last week, shutting down the Panthers. I get it was the Panthers, but still, this is not a pushover defense. Caleb Williams, Superflex only. What does that mean for Cole Kmet, though? I still think he's got to be one of your better streaming options if he's available.
Definitely. He's been good. He's catching touchdowns. I don't even consider him a streamer anymore. I just consider him a solid start.
I'll follow suit. Let's call him a solid start. A lot of teams might have dropped him because of that bye week, so if he's out there, go and look on your waiver wire. Now, Commanders fans and fantasy owners who have JD really hope he's good to go for this week, but if he isn't, it could be Marcus Mariota back in the saddle. Can you consider him even in 2 QB Superflex?
I mean, you're really hoping he runs in a touchdown. This is against the Bears, a great secondary. I'm going to avoid Marcus Mariota.
You and I both know we've been here and done that way too many times to Mariota. Just don't go there. It doesn't matter how good this offense has looked. And so let's talk. Zach Ertz has been pretty consistent, but with JD, with Mariota, could be different.
Yeah, I actually like him more with Mariota. It seemed like Mariota really targeted the tight ends. Zach Ertz finally scored a touchdown with Marcus Mariota. So I think if it's Mariota, Zach Ertz is a good streaming option, but I think even with Jaden Daniels, he's still a streaming option.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He's getting targets. Looks like he will continue to because there really isn't still a clear number 2 receiver in this offense, and Mariota will take those short, easy throws, so still a decent streaming option. All right, now it's the moment we dread. We have to decide what to do with Pat Mahomes when the Chiefs take on the Raiders. That's right, Pat Mahomes, who now somehow has more interceptions than touchdowns on the season and has absolutely nobody to throw to. So, Chris, what tier does Pat Mahomes fall in?
Man, it's the Raiders. You want to say, like, oh, must start, but he's only going to be 2 QB Superflex for me. I mean, he has not even had one good game this year. Yeah, 2 QB Superflex only, even in a good matchup.
I'll tell you what saved him, if you did start him last week, was the rushing touchdown, and he will run just out of sheer necessity these days, but honestly, what is the upside now? This Raiders offense, are they really going to challenge the Chiefs to throw that much? Superflex only. And then there's Gardner Minshew. Oh, man. I mean, look, he can't be as bad as he was last week, but now he gets the Chiefs defense.
Yeah, he can be as bad as he was last week. There is no way I'm starting Gardner Minshew.
Well, now that you think about it, I guess you could. Yeah, let's avoid Gardner Minshew. Panthers at the Broncos. What has happened to Andy Dalton? Is he toast?
I mean, he might have already been toast. He's kind of crashing back down to earth. Now he's going to play the Broncos with probably a healthy Pat Surtain. I'm going to avoid Andy Dalton as well.
I mean, maybe the only quarterback I'll have lower than Andy Dalton this week is Gardner Minshew, so that makes him an avoid. So by default now, Bo Nix, who's at home against the Panthers, he's looking like a better option than most.
He is, because he's got that rushing ability. He's throwing the ball okay. I don't want to stream him in a 1 QB league yet, but against the Panthers at home, I think you could definitely do worse than him in a 2 QB Superflex league.
Yeah, I can't call him a streamer in 1 QB because, I mean, he just doesn't throw it enough. The volume isn't there. And look, there's no team on bye. You shouldn't need Bo Nix. But 2 QB Superflex short. Cowboys at the Niners. Let's talk Dak. I mean, a lot of people are just out on the Cowboys in general, calling Dak a bust, etc., etc. I feel like we do this every year. Do you think Dak can rebound in this game?
I do. I think so. I think we're going to see a much better Dak after the bye week here. I mean, he's got to be better than he was before the bye week. I think they're going to get right in this game. 49ers defense doesn't scare me this year. I don't think Dak is like a must start, but I still think he's a solid start this week.
And I agree. Seems like a good buy low if you're into that kind of thing for quarterbacks. And yeah, he should be at the very least a solid start, even in a single QB league. So does that mean Jake Ferguson after the bye goes back to being a solid tight end option?
I think so. I'm not gonna hold him against what happened in that game before the bye when they were just terrible. He goes back to being a solid start, definitely.
Yeah, and the 49ers used to just completely eliminate tight ends from the game plan, but this defense is not quite there. Look, it's not a great spot. It doesn't matter. Jake Ferguson is always going to be a solid tight end start. Brock Purdy coming off a pretty bad game himself, and here's the thing. No Ayuk for sure. Possibly no Debo. We don't know about Juwan Jennings. What do you do with Purdy?
Probably just going to be a 2 QB Superflex option for me. Missing a lot of weapons. Not looking that good.
Agree. Look, the only reason I don't have him lower is because there are enough other quarterbacks we've talked about that I have to put lower than Purdy. So the low end of the Superflex tier. And then we got the Giants at the Steelers on Monday night. Daniel Jones, well, at least they've confirmed he is still the starter on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense.
I would start him over Gardner Minshew and Mason Rudolph. I think that's it this week.
Even that might be generous. I mean, I'm just going to say avoid. But then Russell Wilson, is there something here? New team, new attitude? Is Russell Wilson streamable?
I think so. Why not? At home against the Giants. He just came off a nice game at home. You know, on a Sunday night. Now he gets to play in primetime again at home. Yeah, I think he's definitely streamable.
This matchup should be good for him. Look, I don't want to stream him in a 1 QB league, but he's not going to be your worst choice, so he is a streaming option. And what about the tight end, Pat Freiermuth?
I think he's also streamable. Like, Russell Wilson has kind of opened up this passing attack a little bit. I wish Darnell Washington wasn't so involved, but I think Freiermuth is still streamable.
Never going to have the highest ceiling, but hey, they don't have that many options as far as wide receivers go, so Muth is still a streaming option. You know we got you covered at every position. Check out all our start sit videos plus more in the Week 8 playlist.